Hello fellow plant enthusiasts. In today's video, I'm going to be making one of these plant hangers for you from start to finish so you can see the entire process. And the main knot that I employ is a square knot. I won't be explaining it to you because it's a very basic knot with macrame, but almost any video you watch on macrame will give you instructions on how to make the square knot. So it becomes redundant explaining how to make that knot for you guys. But I'm going to be using this style of planter because I have a bunch of these, and you'll see how it's done. Now before I start though, make sure you hit that subscribe button to be privy on all my upcoming videos. And I've been on a macrame kick lately, making a bunch of these. You know, the last couple weeks of the year I typically am off work. Of course, I have more than one job. You know, I have a full-time job and a part-time job. So this morning, I was at my part-time job releasing weather balloons. And here on December 29 in Zone 7, it's such a warm day. I actually went there about 5:30 in the morning wearing shorts. So, I don't know if that was in the way, so shorts. So, it's such a nice warm day, and I enjoy these warm winters, you know, or the periods of the winter when we have warm spells, because the weather is just so beautiful. It's nice and not too hot, not really too humid, and it's just great. And with that, let's get started. So I'm going to be making just a simple gray one. I have other videos where you can see how to make the multiple color ones. So I'm going to measure, the table is 6 feet. So I'm going to measure the length of the table. So that's the entire length. Take that up and then give me about an extra foot. So about 13 feet. And let's see. Take this, get it to the center, and let's see, which one was I using? This one? Doesn't matter. And I have a 1-inch stainless steel. I use stainless steel, which is a little more expensive than the regular key rings, but it will at least provide you with, you know, less rust or more rust protection. Anyway, I'm going to loop it in from the front and loop it in. So basically, the curve is on the front versus the back, matter of preference. You know, this gives me a good height, and I can start with a little bit of stability with the pedestal, and it helps me get it a little higher to make this a little shorter. Sometimes, you know, it can be too long or too short, so you want it just right in the Goldilocks length. So let's see, if you have a curve, okay. I have become so good at this that it takes me a lot less time than it used to, but still sometimes, depending on how I'm making it, I may get a hiccup along the way which will slow me down. I will say one thing, this is not easy on the hands, tying so many knots. So to keep my hands from getting sore, I've been taking a bunch of magnesium citrate supplements this week. I used to play music by squeezing my hands together, and you can see a lot of my videos on my other channel. But yeah, it did eventually wear out my hands, so I had to stop doing that. But I was, I was on a few TV programs, 5 episodes of season 2 of Country Fried Home Videos. It's funny, I responded to an ad on Craigslist, and instead of being a contestant, they made me a segment for 5 episodes. And then I was a stand-in musician on a late Saturday night show, if you've ever watched Talk Show with Spike Feresten. So I did basically overplay music with by squeezing it out of my hands. And that was without even being warmed up, So I did end up overusing some of my fingers, so I've sent my hands out to pasture. But making this macrame is, not the best thing to do on my hands. So they do get kind of sore, so it's not something I'll be doing full-time or anything, but just a little bit for fun because I do enjoy making macrame. I only got started doing it about a year ago with all this COVID stuff. And it's basically something I enjoy, and I enjoy making these wall planters more than the traditional hangers. And they're a little more unusual, Since macrame isn't that expensive, although if you go on Etsy, you'll see a lot of nice expensive pieces. But if you buy the ones that are store-made, probably made in some third world country with really cheap labor, they come extremely inexpensive. So it's not something that you can do as an art piece like you can a painting and get hundreds out of a painting, as a modern artist versus a rare art from 100 years ago or longer. It's funny, some paintings from 100 or 200 years ago are worth a lot more than some paintings from 500 years ago. It depends on how well known an artist is. But, with something like this, I would consider myself more of an artiste. So now, let's see, I still need to do another square knot. There we go. I added a half square to make sure I get all the way to the bottom. I could pull this tight and add another one, but I could also stretch it. And one thing I do is sometimes stretch it, because if it's too tight, the next step becomes a major pain. I basically take this and I tuck it in behind the loop. So I tuck this in under the loop there and under there. My apologies for not having a close-up shot from my camera, but since I'm doing this in one continuous take, I'm not going to cut off the camera and everything, but I have close-up shots with another video that I recently posted, so feel free to look up that video. And this is simply a paper clip that I modified to become a very handy tool for making these. It's easy to do with this synthetic cording, but when I use cotton cording, it's a pain to loop under there. But when you loop it under there, you get a much better job. For example, this hanger on my left, it has a Pilea libanensis in there. I made this, it was one of my first pieces I made, and you see how I have the loops coming out and I have them back here going around versus tucked in. It's not the most tidy way to do it that way. So you do need to tuck it in because you want it to look professional. You want to do a professional job. Whether you're using it for yourself or gifting it to friends or selling it, you know, do a good job. You know, in anything you do, do a good job. Whether you're getting into a car accident or something, do a good job of it, you know? So, you know, if you're watching this after having a car accident, my apologies, but, you know, I'm just saying, you know, do a good job in whatever you do. So, I like these alligator clips. I found 2 different sizes at Marshall's. I keep saying Marshall's, Michael's, and they turn out really handy. I don't know how I've made so many because I've only recently bought these. I don't know how I made so many without using them in the past because I was using some safety pins. What a pain. This is so much better using the alligator clips. So I loop them in behind and then loop them back around. And this is a tricky part of this style that I make because you have because I've been doing the loop like that versus wrapping around. I learned that it does, or realized it does a much tidier job, but it's not always the most presentable way. And then if these get twisted, you have to, you know, keep them in check. So by wrapping them around, and I forgot I need them that way, it also gives a different aesthetic appeal to it. So that's a nice thing about it. So these larger clips actually are curved, so they follow the contour really well, so I can actually clip them on the sides once I've added enough tension so I can have them exactly how I want them. And let's see. Okay. So looping these from under the loops at the top, I can now run a few more square knots. So I'm going to do first a half square until I get it to the right tightness I need. Now I can take this clip off. Oh, I already took that one. I guess I can take these 2 off. And then raise this up and pull and then that's how it starts. So this, you want to make sure these aren't overlapped, you know, each other. And I feel like it is a little down, so, you know, it is a little loose, so I do want to get a little more tension on this. So that's why I do a half square until I get it as tight as I want. And then I can continue. Okay, nope. Didn't like the way I adjusted the tension on that, so I'm going to work on this a little more. Get this a little tighter. There we go. Where did this come from? Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to run about 5, actually 2.5 square knots. So there's 1. 1.5. 2. 2.5. Actually, 3 is the magic number, so I have 3 loops on one side, 3 loops on the other side. And one thing I like, well, there are 2 things I like about this style of planter. It sits flat. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing when it's hanging on the walls, but this can then go to the edge of the lip and holds it in place to look nice. And number 2, you can set it flat as you're planting. So now I can go to the back and run this through. You see, I looped it around here to give this a little extra tightness. And in doing so, it also has another knot down here versus up there, so it's more flush on the back versus a big wad to keep this from the wall. But this style tends to curve a little, not as much as a different kind that I got off Amazon that was all dimpled. But when it does that, you can, if you like, you can get some that are going to sit more flat on the wall. But if it does that, you can always put a nail there or just keep it that way because it causes the plant to fan out and look nicer when you have it planted. Now with these extra pieces, one thing I started doing recently is just letting them hang, and I'll trim them to the right length. And basically if somebody wants like a little tassel, if somebody doesn't, they can always trim it off and make it look sleek. So this way, whoever gets this can enjoy it how they want. So now that I have this done, ain't she a beaut? I can start planting. But before I do, I want to give my finishing touch. I have 2 labels. So this one, I'm going to write that it's an original macrame by me. And then, I wrote off the edge. And then on the smaller one, I put in a price tag if I want to sell it. So I typically have been charging $20 for those, and then with a plant 25. So I'm going to put a price tag of 25 because you guys are going to get to see me plant this. So I'll take the tag, and with a tag and everything, it helps it look a little more professional. And with a handwritten tag, you can see that it's more of an arts and craft, and you have the artiste's personal touch put into the label as well, which is a nice thing. So these tags always give you the thinnest strings, don't they? So I'll make that and tuck it in. And then the price tag, I can hang it on the top, but I started putting it on the back. This way you don't have it dangling from the top looking tacky. So I'll stick it in there and tuck it in. So now that's how it's going to look. You can always tuck this thread under if you want to. So now I have some soil mix. I have some succulents. And my trusty USB powered vacuum cleaner with a power bank so I can power it without being tethered to a computer. So I have, this This is like the cap of mouthwash, and I learned that that actually helps with the planting process. So the first thing I'm going to do is fill it in as much as I can before I need to put the plug in. And if you have a mix where you, like a container where you add your own mix of perlite and peat moss and sand or whatever you want to, it's good to have the soil a little moist so it doesn't generate dust when you're using it, but also you don't want it too wet so it's not too soggy either. Now you do have this hole here which sits above, but you want the soil to be a little under the lip so when you water, you're not going to risk spilling it as readily. And usually, especially with a succulent, you know, a small amount, like a shot glass worth, will suffice. You know, you get one with a little spout so it can pour in better between the edges, that will be great. And these are glazed on the inside and they don't have a drainage hole, and that's how I like to plant things, because the drainage hole always makes a mess, and sometimes the soil is so dry between waterings that when you water, it doesn't get whipped up into the soil but flushes down, and then you're not providing the plant with enough water, you know, depending on the plant and its moisture requirements. But that's what people don't realize with houseplants. They never get enough water or light sitting in a house unless you have them in the right place. So I'm basically putting this around the edges so I can have the center sunken and the edges a little higher, because the plant, oh, it was established in there but it came out. Okay, so this one wasn't deeply rooted, so it didn't come out with the plug. So because that, it actually makes my life a little easier with planting, because I can just keep pouring in the soil. Oh, there's some debris in here. It will biodegrade and the plant will enjoy it, the nutrients. I am barely making a mess. I'm even impressing myself with this. So I'm like, yay. Okay, so, you know, as you add water and stuff, this will pad down, so I'm padding it down a little bit to start, just so I can see how much more soil to put in there. Okay, so I won't need this to, I was going to basically, if this filled up, I'd be pouring the soil around the edges to minimize the mess. And I'm going to sit this on top of the spoon so it's not getting as dirty in the soil. I can close this up. Take this plant and stick it in there. And then as it grows, it will grow up. I could always take a little more and fill it up. But now I can use my vacuum cleaner. And here is the finished product. I can now go and hang it on here. And if I want to, I can plant one of these finished ones. So that's all there is to making these simple wall planters. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching and happy planting!